Welcome to the Friday press conference ahead of the 2019 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Joining us today from left to right, we have Claire Williams, Toto Wolff, Mattia Binotto, Zach Brown and Cyril Abiteboul. Welcome all. Mattia, if I could start with you, please. I'd like to take you back to the last race, if I may, to start with. You've no doubt studied the footage of the crash between your two drivers. What's your verdict?
What's the verdict? I think there may be different versions. If you listen to the drivers, they may have their own version. I think at the end there is one true version, which is they damaged the interest of the Scuderia Ferrari, and by doing that, damaging themselves. We discussed all together. We looked again at the video. I think what's always important when that type of thing's happening, there is always something which is triggering it. And more important is to understand what's triggering it. And it's the only way to make sure that in the future it's not happening again. And that's something that certainly we discussed between us.
Charles spoke yesterday when he was summing up 2019, saying it's been a weird season. How would you describe it?
So should I clarify what he said? I don't know, weird, I would say it has been an intense season. Many things happened. If I look from the team perspective or the technical point of view, I think it has been a linear season somehow. If anything weird, I think is we were expecting a better performance after the winter testing. And I think that we never really understood what happened from Barcelona to Australia. If any, those guys certainly made a jump ahead. I think that from our perspective, then we had performance weaknesses in the car that we improved all through the season, as I said, in a linear way. And I think that the car in the second half of the season was certainly better compared to the first part. We are still not the best car in the race. I think that other cars are still faster in the race. We are not certainly the best car in cornering. And at least I know we know our weaknesses, working on it, and from that perspective it has been linear. And then weird, I think, from Charles' perspective, very first year for him in Ferrari, a lot of emotions, a lot of things. He's the man or the driver that started at least most of the time on pole positions this season, which is a great achievement. 2 victories, up and down, as well in his performance relative to his teammates. Not always so, let me say, consistent, if you look from the start to the end. But I think it has been a season where the entire team, the drivers, we learned. I'm pretty sure that will make us even stronger in the future.
Okay. Thank you, Mattia. Good luck this weekend. Toto, if I could come on to you. You miss a race. Look what happens. How difficult was it to watch events at Interlagos from afar, and how did you stay in touch with what was going on?
Yeah, it was weird because it's the first race that I missed since Williams times, Barcelona 2012. And I did it because there's just so much business going on at the moment, and I had a Formula E weekend the following weekend, and obviously Abu Dhabi, and things needed to be done in let's say normal office work. And it was also for me an experiment to see how I would take it. I know that the team is perfectly capable in doing that without me. There were voices that it would be actually beneficial for me not distracting anybody around the racetrack. And so what happened would have happened with me there. And yeah, so I was hoping that it would be a perfect weekend and I could miss some of the bad ones next year. But at the moment, I'm off that plan.
Now, it's been a cracking end to this season with 3 teams battling for wins. Does that make you nervous for next year? Do you expect it to be the closest battle of the hybrid era?
Yes, I think so. We have always defended the standpoint that by letting the regulations alone, performance convergence would happen, or at least there's a higher probability that convergence happens rather than throwing the dice and introducing something new. And I think we are seeing that. It's fair to say that there's 3 teams capable of winning races today and probably winning championships if things are being put together. McLaren has massively caught up, probably the steepest performance in slope of all teams, and will be there or thereabouts in my opinion. So yeah, I see this very much of being a much tougher season. I don't think we are going to see the kinds of 10 race wins or 12 race wins per team for next year anymore. But obviously we will be trying everything to optimize our weaknesses and continue to perform well.
Thank you, Toto. Good luck this weekend. And let's come on to McLaren now, to Zak Brown. Zak, the team has sealed 4th in the Constructors' Championship. Given where it was a year ago in P6 and then P9 the year before that, how much of an achievement is that?
I think it's been a big achievement given where we've been the last couple of years. I think the team's done an excellent job both at the factory and at the racetrack. Everyone has contributed. Renault's played a big part in us getting more competitive again. They've been a fantastic partner. Drivers are doing a very good job bringing the car home and in the points often. So it's certainly been a pleasure racing this year when I look back to Abu Dhabi last year.
Now, if the past 12 months have been fruitful, can you just tell us a little bit about the next 12 months? Because you've got a harder split program than most teams, preparing a Renault-powered 2020 car and then a Mercedes-powered 2021 car.
Yeah, I think everyone's going to be in the same boat in the sense of the 21 car is going to be such a change from 20 that everyone's going to be starting from a clean sheet of paper. But we're up for it. That was one of the reasons why we made an early decision to give ourselves as much time as possible. But I think 21 is going to be exciting for Formula One and for the fans because when there's a big change like that, someone's going to get it right, someone's going to get it wrong. And as Toto said, tends to converge over time. But I'm excited for the 21 season, but also excited for 20, of course.
Okay, thank you, Zak. And Claire, if we could come on to you and talk a little bit more about that 2020-2021 split from Williams' point of view. How difficult a juggling act is it when there's such a huge opportunity in 2021?
Yeah, it's clearly not easy. I think we've all talked about the challenges that we're all going to face next year. I think everyone in the pit lane is going to have a challenge on their hand. I think it's probably slightly easier for the top 3 teams with bigger budgets. For us, it's a real challenge back at the factory trying to run those 2 programs for next year, for 21. But obviously, we've been trying to run this year's programme when we haven't let development slide. We've got to continue to bring upgrades to the car over the course of this season, which we've been doing. And really, we're looking at 19 and 20 as one long campaign. So it is difficult, but we wanted the 21 regulations to come in. We've lobbied hard for them, and so we've just got to deal with the problem head on and do the best job that we can.
News yesterday on the driver front. Just a word on Nicholas Latifi. Why have you chosen him to partner George Russell next year?
I think it was probably a fairly obvious choice. We're pleased that we were able to finally make the announcement. It's been a long time coming and probably an obvious choice for us. Nicholas has been with us now this year as our reserve driver. He's done 6 FP1s for us and some test sessions. He'll run next week at the Abu Dhabi test, and he's just become a really great part of the team. He's got a great personality, and from track performance perspective, he's done a good job in the F2 campaign this year. He's obviously hoping to close out P2 this weekend, and I think he'll be instrumental in helping drive the team forward. He's got a very similar personality to George, and George has proved how motivating he's been for everybody in the team, and I think Nicholas will probably mirror that next year.
Thank you, Claire. Good luck this weekend. Cyril, coming to you. Thanks for waiting. Renault is involved in a very tight battle with Toro Rosso for 5th place in the Constructors' Championship, just 8 points the difference. Given the nature of this circuit, how confident are you in your car's performance?
If you really ask me for this circuit, I'm very confident. We were competitive last year. FP1 is not much to say because FP1 is very particular here given the conditions. But no, I think that indeed Toro Rosso with different circumstances that they benefited and that also managed to make happen in a close fight. But I think it's fair to say that on average we are clear P5. sorry for the mistake, we are actually not P4. The target was to be P4, so we have not reached that target, but on average we deserve that P5. We didn't benefit of any particular results that have helped in that respect. No podium when it could have been possible. Again, it's our own fault, so I'm not blaming anyone in particular. But no, I think we will have a good fight tomorrow and Sunday, but I believe our chances are, I want to believe that our chances are high to finish P5.
Now, overall, it's been a difficult season for you guys. What have you learned from the really tough moments? And when were they?
Oh, there's been many tough moments, but there's been good moments also. I think it's important, to a certain degree, to take a bit of distance. So if you ask me, so it's really to manage, to learn about the resilience that you need in that sport. Sometimes people believe how difficult it is as a sport, as a business, or also given the difficulty and the way that the world is changing. We were on a ramp up. Zach has just mentioned that good trend that they have, P9, P6, P4, is exactly the trend that we had, also P9, P6, P4. I think all of that is possible, but the difficulty first is to maintain that P4 position. Now that McLaren has been able to come back from where they were before, and the main difficulty will not to stay P5 or P4, because we should not be content with that, and I'm sure Zach is not content with that, but also to bridge the gap with the top teams. That will be the next difficulty, and still the target for us. It's a target for 2021. Everything in our program has been built around that long-term target of 2021, because in accordance to our strategy, that's really the first opportunity to make that happen. But before 2021, there is 19, there is 20, and there is a short-term result and the short-term pressure that everyone is putting on all of us, and that's fine. Again, that's part of the sport.
Okay. Thank you, Cyril. Let's open this to the floor now. And as ever, please remember to give your name and publication. First question, please.
Andrew Benson, BBC Sport. Mattia, what guidelines or rules or instructions have you given the drivers in terms of racing going forward from this point to stop what happened in Brazil happening again, if indeed they are allowed to race?
There are no answers here. It's something we discuss internally. They are both very good drivers. They know exactly what to do. I think it has been somehow unfortunate what happened, but it will not happen anymore.
Thank you. Next one.
Dieter Renken, Racing Lines and RaceFans.net. Zach, you're obviously delighted at finishing fourth in the championship. But if you look at it, Red Bull finished third with the engine that you people had sort of rejected. How do you feel about that? I mean, is there any regret? And then equally, Cyril, how do you feel about being beaten by your engine customer, given the fact that you both have very similar resources?
Such a nice fellow.
Look, I think, first of all, congratulations to Honda. It's great they're going to be staying in the sport. I think that's positive for the sport. I think you got to give credit to Helmut Marko for making a good strategic decision to first put Honda into his B team, and then that works out well, so he puts it into his A team. And then he's got two good lieutenants in Christian and Franz running those teams, and they're winning races now. So good on them, and good for the sport.
Cyril?
Well, it's we are beaten by our customer, okay. But when I'm not beaten by my customer, I'm beaten by McLaren, and McLaren is a great team. McLaren has had his difficulty. I think maybe some things that has not mentioned that he could have mentioned is also the fact that sometimes you need to change some stuff to really understand where you're at and what needs to be changed and what needs to be made stronger. And I think the fact that when they come to Renault, we were a benchmark, not a benchmark in the sense that we were the best, but at least he knew, McLaren knew what was the Renault engine capable of doing with Red Bull at the time. And the fact, I think that really put a light on what needed to be changed in their organization. And they've done that. They've taken action based on those information. I think we are doing the same, in fairness, a bit later, but we are still doing the same. We know what our engine is capable of doing. In my opinion, it's the engine that done most progress over the winter, probably right there, probably at the top in race conditions. So that's good, but obviously that's not enough. So we had to take action, and we reacted exactly what we've done. We restructured the aerodynamic department. We recruited someone who actually is no stranger to probably the resurrection of McLaren, Pat Fry. And that will not stop there. So I think what matters is being able to constantly, assess where you're strong and where you're weak. That's what McLaren has done. That's also what we've done, and react. That's also what we're doing.
Thank you. Next one.
Lawrence Edmondson, ESPN. Question to the whole panel. F1 is planning to become carbon neutral by 2030, but when you consider that entire countries have got a similar plan in place, is F1 being ambitious enough? And is the whole sport going to face a losing battle as it tries to remain relevant over the next 10 years?
Claire, why don't we start with your end?
Excellent. I think the very fact that F1 have come out and launched a proposal in this area is the best starting block. I don't think that we have talked enough about what we do already do. I think there's a lot more that we could communicate in order to demonstrate the very fact that our sport is probably a whole lot more sustainable than the generic perception of it out there at the moment. These new hybrid engines being the perfect example, we have never talked about them being as relevant as they are. But I think that the sport does need to become a whole lot more sustainable. It's a wider conversation in the rest of the world, and it's a very relevant and important one at the moment. And this sport needs to be doing what it should be doing in order to tackle a whole lot of issues that we haven't been tackling, and that there probably is an enormous amount of low-hanging fruit that we can all contribute to as a collective. I think as individual teams, we have started down this pathway many, many years ago, but again, something that we don't necessarily talk or shout about. I mean, at Williams, we have a whole business division of about 350 people that tackles or that takes some of those issues and uses battery technology in order to address them. And again, we should probably be doing a better job to talk about it. But I think that the very fact that F1 have started this pathway, it is only the very beginning, but I think a 10-year plan is probably the right amount of time in order to tackle it.
Thank you. Toto?
Yeah, obviously what Claire said about the engines, we're having the most efficient hybrid power units, and we need to, I think, talk more about it. This is a hybrid race series already, and how we can see the future in the automotive world going. Hybrid is definitely the next defining step over the next few years. Having said that, Formula One was always the pinnacle of motor racing in terms of the engineering and innovation, and lots of the things we do have found their way into road cars and continue to find their way into road cars, and big part of that is efficiency, of course. So I think we have a role to play in order to facilitate innovation in Formula One, and at the same time be part of that climate movement that is absolutely necessary. We are all living in the same world. We see the air and the oceans getting more polluted every day, and I think the more we support the movement, the more we tackle it with the small steps, banning plastic bottles like the one you have next to your chair from our hospitality, changing the way we fuel our dynos, not with diesel anymore, but something more sustainable. I think we are going to add to better the world. And I've read something that I liked a lot, is what difference does one plastic bottle make to the world, said 8 billion people. And I think this is the kind of mindset we need to embrace.
Thank you. Matthew?
Nothing more left, I would say. As I touch all the points, we are all on the same page. It's certainly a key topic. It's challenging objective. I think that as F1, we have to be and we can be an important platform for development in that respect on sustainability. And I think we got a lot of engineering background, which can be used as well to somehow develop and improve that situation. So I think that it's an overall global effort of all the teams, F1, FIA, all together. But it's great at least that we set the objectives. I'm pretty sure that for the future as well of F1, that will be key and important.
Thank you. Zach?
Yeah, I think, as everyone has said before me, it's a very big topic. It's a very important topic. I think it's a journey with a never-ending road. All of us are tackling it in different ways, in similar ways. not only as a Grand Prix team, but in our businesses. It's great to see Formula One put such importance on it, and I think it'll be something that many of us are already doing today and will continue to do and improve upon, because it's an important topic for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, not much to add, apart maybe from the fact that if Formula One or cars in general are seen as part of the problem, Formula One can also be part of the solution. And I'm not aware of any other sport that can contribute in any shape or form to the solution. And I think that's really important to mention. We created lots of expectation with that collective announcement, so we will have to deliver against those expectations. One figure I would mention is, we're talking about this engine, but to put things in perspective, average increase in power of the engine, F1 engine, since 2014 is 3% per year. If you put that in perspective to UN target figure of CO2 emission, in order to reach the COP21 target, will be 2.5%. So we actually, on the basis that we are at stable fuel consumption, it means that we have actually exceeded what UN is commanding from the whole industry in general. So I think it's a good benchmark. Obviously, it comes at a huge cost. Lots of technology can't be transferred on all cars on the planet, but still, I think it does represent an element of answer to the problem.
Thank you. Next one.
John McAvoy, Daily Mail, to Mattia Binotto. So far, there hasn't been a great deal of light shed on the incident with your drivers at the last race. There have been a lot of words, but not much light. I was wondering whether you find them, whether you thought one driver was more to blame than the other, and A, I'd like a straight answer to that, and B, if I don't, why do you bother showing up at these events?
Is there one driver more to blame than the others? I think it's even not important, because maybe that time it could have been maybe Seb, next time will be Charles. There are two drivers, they are fighting, they can both of them make mistakes, and I think that at the end what's important is to make sure that whoever is the one in Brazil or the next time it's not happening again. So, and again, I don't think there is much to discuss, because that's something which is in between our factory, between us, something we discussed, and happy to keep it between us.
Next one.
Phil Duncan, PA. Toto, Lewis in Brazil suggested that his future at Mercedes would depend on your future at Mercedes. I was just wondering if he's sought any assurances from you and whether you've been able to offer those to him. And to Mattia, Lewis Hamilton's available to sign in 2021 as it stands. Would you like to sign him for Ferrari?
It was, Lewis and I have grown close over the last 7 years. We ended up in Mercedes at the same time in 2013, and I think we have built up a lot of trust. And at the same time, the two of us are part of a wider organization where everybody's playing in their relative field of competence. And I think for him to say that is nice. I'd also like to know where he goes or if he stays in the future. And we are having those discussions about the future, and I think that is very important between the two of us, like between many others that have played an important role within the team. So can I shed more light? No, at that stage, for me it was important to finish the season in Abu Dhabi. As I said, there is many things to be decided on, and we'll see over the winter.
Mattia?
Lewis is certainly an outstanding driver, fantastic driver. Knowing that he's available in 2021 can make us only happy, but honestly it's too early for any decision. So we are happy with the drivers we got at the moment, and I think certainly at one stage next season we'll start discussing and understanding what to do.
Thank you. Next one.
Joost Nederpelt, nu.nl. Question to all five. What was your favorite moment or anecdote of the season?
Cyril, let's start with you this time.
I haven't had time. Well, I guess my favorite moment has been qualifying in Montreal with Daniel, clinching P4. I think it was something like that. That was, let's be honest, unexpected. Not totally deserved. I think Valtteri had a problem in qualifying, so I think it was one position better than what we would have had. But clearly, finally, the demonstration that what we were saying, I was personally also claiming since a while, which was that the engine had made a huge step, was actually true. So it's not an anecdote, it's a story and a very high moment of that season.
Thank you. Zach?
Well, it'd have to be Brazil, wouldn't it, with it being our first podium and clinching fourth in the championship. So that and Lando qualifying in Q3 in his first race in Australia, and us coming out and being in Q3. So I know you only asked me for one, but I gave it to you.
Thank you. Mattia?
Many moments. Obviously, this season we have been celebrating our 90s years of Scuderia Ferrari. So I would say as first, the event where we celebrated in Milan, Piazza del Duomo, with all our fans, Antifosi, and obviously on the same week, let's say the first throw on the grid in Monza.
Toto?
For me, I don't want to talk about the best moment because the overshadowing event was Nicky's death. That kind of is the big theme of the season for us. So I was thinking whilst they were answering whether I had a moment which I felt like being the best, and I didn't. Of course, we are very grateful to win the championship, but this one moment just overshadows everything else.
And Claire?
Mine probably, as you would expect, probably didn't come on the circuit this year. But for me, the real highlight has been our pit stop crew. You probably will track progress. Unfortunately, Red Bull have just pipped us to the best pit stop crew of the year. But the way that our pit stop team have worked this year, I think, has been it gives a capsule of the resilience that our team have shown throughout the entire year. They go out there each and every race and fight for our drivers and for the rest of the team like they're fighting for podium position, and that for me has been a true highlight.
Thank you. Next one.
Beatrice Zammuner, Motorlat. Zach, how would you describe and assess your driver's contribution to McLaren's 2019 improvement?
I give them a lot of credit, both of them. Early in the season, our car wasn't as competitive, and I think it's the team, the drivers for bringing the car home constantly, not really making any mistakes. And then the cars developed well over the course of the year, and we were able to give them a faster race car. But I think credit to both of them. Carlos has definitely shined this year, and I think Lando's been an excellent rookie that has shown a lot of maturity for a very young driver.
Thank you. Next.
Question for Toto. What was your impression of Nick de Vries last weekend and in general of the Formula E? Is it going to be once together the Formula 1 and Formula E, you think?
I really enjoyed the experience, I must say. I've never been to Saudi Arabia before, and launching our Mercedes Formula E journey was very special. The crowds were phenomenal. Seeing how this country is opening up was something I didn't expect in that way. And the racing is very different to Formula 1. Clearly, you can say that. For me, it's Super Mario Kart with real drivers. But it's absolutely valid to give that a chance. And Nick has already contributed a great deal to the team's performance. He's very mature, and the way he's, as a personality and as a racing driver, has been able to slot into the team with Stoffel is really nice to see. We have set our ambitions on our expectations on a realistic targets, which we have overachieved, and both of the drivers contributed to this happening.
Thank you. Next.
Question to Mr. Wolf, Binotto, and Abitabo. Is like the engine power convergence really possible given what's going on around the Ferrari engine now after so many years, and given that they will have a budget cap since 2021, which I guess does not include the engine development?
Toto.
I think you will see over the long-term trend on engine performance that will stabilize. I think we have seen outliers of engine performance. We have seen very good races with Ferrari. We have seen Renault doing a step up, and in the same way that has stretched us. So I think looking over a many year cycle, these gains will get smaller. Like in any mature industry, the marginal gains tend to decrease, and I have no doubt that this will happen.
Cyril, anything to add?
No, I think that indeed the stability of regulation is showing that ultimately performance is converging, which is good for the sport. I continue to believe that there are some breakthrough to come that will come with new process, with new materials. So that's interesting. So you should watch this space and see what still it has to offer. I mean, and getting back to what I was mentioning before, there is an awful lot of innovation that I would almost say it's a bit unfortunate that we can't really talk about because of all the secrets, of all the IP that's involved and all the investments that's associated. But yeah, I mean, our engineers keep on having lots of ID, and that's great to see. We've recruited a lot of young guys coming from universities. They're not necessarily passionate about Formula One, but I can tell you they're passionate about doing what they're doing in the field of internal combustion engine and power unit in general, and that's good and extremely refreshing. So I think it's good that Formula One keep on having this field of innovation for engine in general.
Mattia, anything from you before we move on? Engine convergence?
Will convergence happening? I think we are all convinced on that. The reason we are all convinced that the rules that we have all accepted or defined is such that there will be dynos restriction. And therefore, we believe that there will be no more the necessity to develop as we are developing today. And there will be some even freezing opportunities all through the power unit. And the fact that we are starting freezing some of the components is because that we believe that there is only a very marginal benefit at some stage in developing, and it's good for the sustainability to start freezing and reducing the dynos activities. So yes, we are all convinced that we'll come to a convergence. I think we are already converging, and in the next period that will happen, certainly.
Thank you. Next one.
Dieter Rankin, Racing Lines and RaceFans.net. To all five, given the uncertainty of commitment of at least two teams to Formula One after 2020, should Formula One actually actively go out now and try and attract new teams?
Claire, let's start from your end.
I'm not sure I know a whole level of detail about two potential teams leaving the sport, but clearly we want, a grid of 10 teams that promotes great racing, and we need great racing to ensure that our fans keep tuning in and watching us, and clearly we want to be growing that audience as well. So whether it's down to F1 to actively go out and promote that, or whether it's down to those teams selling them to make sure that they can secure buyers, all I can say is Williams certainly isn't one of those teams.
Toto.
All the numbers that are coming in from audiences in the conventional TV, digital space, sponsorship are growing. I think this is a sport that also with the spending cap coming in 2021 is an area of growth. there will be certain thresholds that will come into the rules about joining the sport, certain franchise value. Leaving the sport now would certainly be not the right thing to do from a commercial perspective when it's just about to turn into new opportunity. Should we be looking out for new teams if there is interest in joining the grid with a solid foundation, big brands? Why not have the discussion? But I think we should be all 10 of us should be proud in being part of that limited grid. We should be conscious about the opportunity and the possibility that lies ahead, and concentrate on making it a good business for everybody.
Not really much to add. I think the first objective should not to look around, but try to retain what we've got, and only after, eventually.
Thank you. Zach?
I think it'd be great to see another team in the sport. I think that, like when we go to new race markets, that creates excitement. And so as long as it's a quality racing team, I think it would just add excitement and opportunity. So not the team's responsibilities to be looking for the next team to join, but Formula One, as Toto said, is the television's up, sponsorship's up, fan appeal is up, and therefore the more the sport can grow, the better.
Thank you. And Cyril?
I generally agree. I would maybe just add something that's not been mentioned, which is driver development and drive access to Formula One to young drivers. That's maybe an area where maybe having one team or two, provided that they are solid teams, solid project with good backing, not just opportunistic interest because it's perceived that the business model will become better. But good sporting project, I think, could be interesting, because we all see that sometimes even good drivers struggle to make it to Formula One. And we all remember the time of teams like Minardi and this type of teams that were doing an excellent job in facilitating access to Formula One for those kids. We have a young driver program, and right now, even though we've got great talents, I'm not totally clear on how we will make it to Formula One. I think Toto experienced the same difficulty with some drivers without opening some things that is still touchy.
We talk about it.
Yeah, but we sort it out now. So I think you see where I'm going at. I think it's important to have stability of the 10 teams first and foremost, but think also about the dynamic of accessibility to Formula One to drivers.
Thank you, Cyril. That's all we've got time for. Thank you for your time. Good luck this weekend.